A great game from a perspective of Athletic Bilbao when you consider what is it that they do well at home. They depend on that energy. And so to that end, if you're Barcelona, you cannot give Athletic Bilbao any sort of hope or reason to believe that they're going to be in this game. So when Ter Stegen is coming out of the back, as he did time and time again in the first half, and you turn the ball over in a positioning where now Athletic Bilbao can get numbers forward and can get that step and get the people excited about being there because they feel it. You know what? This team is here to play, and we're here to play, and we believe that we're going to win. Makes it that much more difficult for Barcelona, a team that, as we know, they're struggling with confidence. And they try to play out of the back 1,000 times over, and whenever they lost it in bad areas, it allowed Athletic Bilbao back into the game. As for Barcelona themselves, once they broke through that pressure, then you had all that time and space for Lionel Messi, for Antoine Griezmann, eventually for Sergio Roberto, and there were opportunities there for Barcelona to put it away. The issue with Barcelona is that right now they're not good enough to keep games close. They're not good enough to put away teams. They're not good enough to really be the better team and show it and really create that separation. And when you don't do that, then a team like Athletic Bilbao eventually can hurt you.
Is it fair to say they're unlucky, though?
Absolutely. Listen, I'm sure they won't feel particularly great, but I think when they sit down and look at this in the cold light of day, this is a game that, had the scoreline been 3-0 Barcelona, nobody would have had a problem with it. Listen, away from home, when you're playing against the side that you're supposed to beat, this is the sort of thing that can happen. Now, I would be a lot more worried if Barcelona hadn't created anything, but the fact is they did. The fact is it could have been at least 3, maybe more, but they didn't take the chances, which is worrying, but they made the chances. If they continue to do that, then they'll score goals.
Let's bring Sid Lowe into the conversation. Stevie's right in the fact that maybe Barca were a bit unlucky, but history will say that they lose the game. They're out in a week in which this is the last thing they need, Sid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, there are two ways of responding to what Steve's saying. One is, as you said, that in the context of everything that's happening to Barcelona, this is a disaster, however they've played. You know, this will deepen the crisis. This will expose them even more in a week in which Messi has said, you know, we take responsibility for what happens on the pitch. Well, what happens on the pitch turns out to be every bit as bad as what's just happened off the pitch. And so in that sense, they did themselves no favours, Barcelona. I'd also very slightly take issue with Steve. I think he's right. There were opportunities. Of course, Griezmann's chance was a very clear one. Messi's chance was a clear one. There's a good chance as well for Ansu. But I also think that as Ali was talking about, Barcelona's vulnerability trying to play out the back in the first half, I thought was absolutely startling. You know, Ter Stegen gave away 2 perfect assists in 2 minutes. He then got caught again 2 or 3 minutes after that. Barcelona couldn't find a way out. And I thought that all the way through the game, while Barcelona fundamentally were the better side, we saw some of the problems they've had this year. The inability to get away from that press, the inability to catch people. You know, that moment when Iñaki Williams is running up the wing, dragging Piqué along behind him, literally dragging him up the wing. You know, the fact that Ter Stegen and Piqué crashed into each other at one point. All the way through this game, Messi missing chances. Even though it's true that Barcelona made chances to have won this, and had they got 2 or 3 goals early on, we wouldn't have had any complaints. But they then conceded chances because Iñaki Williams scores with what I think is pretty much his 4th good chance of the game. I still think in that sense, at least, we saw the reasons why Barcelona are absolutely dreadful away from home this season.
We were talking about, during the game, Stevie and I, the spacing for Barcelona, for a team that traditionally has been all about possession, the spacing for Barcelona is so poor when they have the ball. They get on each other's way, they get on each other's spaces, and so they become so narrow, they have no width, and so they become easier to defend. And so for a team like Bilbao that likes the contact, that likes the physicality, it plays right into their hands because it's now about 50-50 challenges, and if that's a game you're going to play, then Bilbao is going to be better than you. A team that we know is precise with their passing and their movement, traditionally anyways, you would have enough distance between players where you can let the ball do the work instead of having to run and transport the balls for such a long period of time, where now by the time that you get your head up and try to find that running behind, that's no longer there. The passing and movement of Barcelona is not as crisp as it needs to be.
Sid, that's obviously what happened on the pitch today. Meanwhile, what happened off it over the last few days has grabbed the headlines worldwide. This very, very public spat between Eric Abidal and Lionel Messi. Am I right as it stands? Barcelona will have us believe that it's over, that everyone's happy, that we're moving on?
Well, that's what they want us to believe, and of course that is actually what they have to do now. You know, you can't really deal with this any other way except to just try and calm things down, to try and put out the flames. And of course, this result, had it gone another way, would have helped. But in this case, it hasn't helped at all. It's done the complete opposite. I think there are a couple of reasons why, while some of us, and I include myself in this, assumed that when we saw this response from Messi that Abidal would get sacked. I think there's a couple of reasons why that doesn't happen in the end. One, of course, is the fact that if you sack Abidal because Messi has said this, you fuel the rumours even more that Messi is in charge at the club and that what Messi says goes. So it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't even help Messi to do that. And so I think what you have to do, of course, is to calm things down and then deal with this further down the track. But I just don't see a scenario in which Abidal survives beyond the end of the season, to be honest with you.
Reports are obviously suggesting that Manchester City are keeping an eye on this whole situation, as imagine any reporter would try and link these two together. Is it true that Messi can leave at the end of the season for free, Sid?
Yes, it's true that he can. There is a clause in his contract that allows him to do that. In fact, Abidal said this in this interview. These were two very, very long interviews on the same day. But of course, those interviews are being almost entirely overlooked because of the one phrase that provoked the response from Messi. But in one of those two interviews with El Mundo Deportivo and with Sport, he says that, yes, this is true, this clause is there, but I'm not worried about it. And Messi has to communicate to us his decision in May. I suppose from all of our points of view, that's a good thing because it means we won't be doing this all summer, that there is a point at which it has to be dealt with, and it happens early enough, mercifully.
We will, though, be talking about it all the way up to May until we hear about it.
Yes,
we will. If you could put a percentage on it, what would you say to the fact that Lionel Messi could be playing somewhere that isn't Barcelona at the start of next season?
Yeah, I mean, the minute you say it like that, it just feels completely unbelievable. Messi has said repeatedly that he doesn't want to leave Barcelona. He has said repeatedly that he wants to retire there. The only other option that he's ever floated, and actually he's gone very quiet on this in the last 4 or 5 years, is that maybe he would go back and play for Newell's Old Boys one day, but that he's not going to go. The problem is, of course, that if that clause is there, it is at the very least there so that this thought can be entertained, so that if there is a need, and whether it's a real need or not, but a perceived need from him to move on, that it can happen. And I think he will look at it and he will think, I'm 33, haven't won the Champions League since 2015. Frankly, looking at them now, it doesn't look very likely that they're going to win the Champions League now. He's looking at a squad that's been debilitated, a team that around him isn't functioning, an institution that's falling apart. And the temptation must be enormous to think, well, I've maybe only got 2 years left. I want to win the European Cup in one of these 2 years. And so the temptation then maybe to chase that, I think, will be huge. If you've asked for a percentage, I'm saying he's 75% stay. But right now it's very, very difficult to judge. Very difficult.
Would you leave, Stevie?
I wasn't expecting that, 75%. I thought Sid was going to say about 5% or something.
Yeah.
Would I leave? It's very difficult to put yourself in the shoes of somebody like Messi, to be honest with you. And every single thing he's ever said, not just recently, but in his whole career, has been about as honest as it's possible to get. And so when this guy's saying that he doesn't want to leave Barcelona, you kind of think this guy is loyal also. Mm-hmm. And there's no way he's going to walk out the door and they'll get nothing. I can't imagine him walking out the door for free and whoever he's going to not having to pay something.
But that's in the contract.
No, I know it is, but I don't think Messi's that type of guy. Messi will understand that if he just walks out the door, it's going to cost them 200 or 300 million to replace him. He knows that. And I'm not saying that any club is going to turn around and pay 200 or 300 million for a guy who's nearly, coming in 33? But I just think if he does walk, he will figure something out with the team he's going to that they get some sort of compensation.
If he rang you up, Ali, and said, Ali, what should I do? What would you advise him to do?
I would tell him, Lionel, this is not a decision just based on numbers, and this is a decision based on feelings, on emotions. And while people want to make an objective decision, I think this is also a subjective decision. It has to do with the fact that this is a man who has grown up and matured as a man within this institution. That he was a boy, and now he is who he has become, and has been part of this institution. And when you do that, as Stevie would know about Liverpool, you bleed the colors of that club. And so to walk away from that, it's something that I would not recommend. Here, he calls the shots. Whether that's the perception or not, he calls the shot. He is who he is. He's that door everywhere he goes. He walks on water in Barcelona. And while he may walk on water somewhere else...
This was brilliant, Ali. It was just a brilliant cup tie.
It was, and this is validation, as was the Athletic Bilbao-Barcelona game, of this new format for Copa del Rey, where you don't have two legs, where you have one leg and there's an immediate result, and whatever happens here, you win or go home. And the approach by Real Sociedad was one of, we are going to attack Real Madrid. They didn't sit back. They had some pressure at times, but then when there was opportunity and a moment to go on the counterattack, Isak was creating all sorts of problems for the back line of Real Madrid. And that's really the part that I was most surprised about in Real Madrid. A team that we have become accustomed to see them defend well, that up until today they had only received 13 goals in La Liga. And today in one Copa del Rey match they received 4, and every bit of 4 goals. It's not by accident, because Isak himself could have a couple more, and he had one called off because of VAR. It was a great performance by Real Sociedad, a concerning defensive performance by Real Madrid.
Well, after that defeat against PSG, Real Madrid came together, weren't great to watch, but they were great at the back, conceding few goals, as Ali mentioned. Today, all that collapsed.
Yeah, but listen, there's a reason for that. Look at the personnel that we're playing. I mean, you're playing against Real Sociedad, who you know are going to come forward. Because that's what they're good at that. They create chances, they score goals. They're only 3 goals behind Real Madrid in La Liga. So you know they're coming forward. But when you're going to have 4 of your back 5, and I'm including the goalie in this, who, if there's a Champions League game tomorrow, are not playing and shouldn't be playing, then don't be surprised when you let in goals. But the surprising thing is, it was so many goals, so easily, and how it could have been so more. So, if nothing else, Zidane has to have learned in this game that at least 3 of the 4 that were in today should be nowhere near a proper game.
To that point, when you consider on the outside, both Marcelo and Nacho having all sorts of difficulties in 1v1 situations. And Marcelo will go home today and say, I did all right today. Score a goal on the other side, created some opportunities. Every time that anybody from Real Sociedad went in 1v1 situation against Nacho or Marcelo, Real Madrid was panicking.
Sid, the funny thing about this game, it just rips up the game plan that we've been told the new Real Madrid would deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. But, of course, Steve's right to focus some of that, at least, on personnel. Now, it's true that there's been a structural shift at Real Madrid. I think as much as anything else, there's been an attitude shift at Real Madrid with Zidane, focusing on the importance of defensive solidity, focusing on the importance of the league, if nothing else, as a kind of culture, if you like, of daily work, and not just turning up for the big games, but turning up for every game. But Steve's right to talk about personnel. And I think if you look at Real Madrid's defensive improvements this season, it's not just about 2 men, but I think 2 men stand out above all others. One is Mendy at left back, if for no other reason because he's not Marcelo, and the other, of course, is Casemiro in the middle of midfield. So it's not just that back 4 or back 5 plus the goalkeeper. You could probably say it's the back 6 today that wasn't the normal back 6 because Casemiro wasn't there in front of them protecting them either.
Sid, when they were chasing this game, you'd imagine it would have been perfect opportunity to bring on Gareth Bale, who, of course, wasn't in the squad. Is he injured? Is he falling out with Zidane again? What's the latest?
Well, it's 4 games in a row in which he's not even in the squad. Zidane has basically given up on him. Lucas Vazquez wasn't available. The fact that Brahim gets in ahead of him. Now, it's true, of course, and you always got to have that little asterisk by saying this is a Copa del Rey game. It's a game when you do try and give opportunities to people like Brahim, who's actually responded very well in the Copa del Rey. But what this tells you is that fundamentally there is a very, very big problem, and it's going to take something very significant.
Defeat that game at 2:45 Eastern, or if you fancy a bit of Championship, Bristol City taking on Birmingham City. That game also at 2:45 here on Plus. You take a look at the bookies, and they have Manchester City as favourites to advance to the next round of the Champions League. They're, of course, taking on Real Madrid. The first leg, February the 26th. Sid, would I be right in saying that maybe minds have changed slightly on this tie, considering the form of City and, forgetting tonight, the form of Real Madrid since the draw was made?
Definitely in Spain. No doubt about it. In Spain, that's certainly the case. Bear in mind, of course, that Real Madrid had that start to the Champions League where they were held by Bruges at home and were fortunate to get a 2-2 draw when they were beaten by Paris Saint-Germain 3-0 and were genuinely disastrous that night. And they did get through, but they got through in second place, and there was a sense that they hadn't been that good to get out of a group that should have been easy. But then since then, they've really improved. And as you say, tonight they were beaten, but tonight was the first time in 22 games that they've been beaten. They've discovered, I think, a competitiveness, a seriousness about them that they certainly didn't have in last season, but I think really haven't had at any time in the last 5 or 6 years in terms of the defensive solidity. I think we've seen Zidane recover players. And so, yeah, I think in Spain, there is a sense that Real Madrid are far stronger than they were when the group stage was coming to an end. And equally, they've seen the vulnerability of Manchester City, which I think probably back in the autumn they weren't quite so clear about.
It's a difficult one to call this, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You can kind of make an argument for both.
Yeah, because you sort of have to project what the very best version of both of these teams can be. And if that's the case, I don't have any doubt in my mind that Manchester City at their best is better than Real Madrid. The problem is that we have not seen the best version of Manchester City with any sort of consistency. And clearly we haven't seen that over the last couple of weeks. So they are not exactly trending in the right direction as we head into Champions League. As for Real Madrid, if you take today's game aside, they have been a team that has defended very well and has done just enough offensively. Against a team like Manchester City, because they're so poor defensively, you're going to be able to create more. So if you defend well and you create more, I'm still thinking that Real Madrid is favored given the struggles of Manchester City.
Yeah, I mean, if you play the game tomorrow, you'd probably say that. But unfortunately for Real Madrid, it's going to be a couple of weeks. It's going to be a break, and it's going to be another couple of games for City to get the shooting boots on.
Right.
Because
they got West Ham at the weekend, obviously, where you'd imagine they'll start.
Well, West Ham are giving anybody who plays against them goals for fun. And as bad as City have been in front of goal, you know this is going to end. They can't keep this drought going. And I think of the two sides going forward, Man City create more and score more goals. So we're talking about defences now. I'm going to go Manchester City because I think they'll get through this period of missing chances and they will score more than they let in this two-legged tie.
Sid, we know how precious this competition is to Real Madrid, but would it be fair to say if they do get knocked out, it won't be seen as the end of the world as maybe as it would have done on previous campaigns?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think there are a number of reasons for that. One, of course, is that the expectation levels are lower. And I think even earlier in the season, before we had some of the big doubts that we now have against Barcelona, I think we looked at both of these two teams and thought, neither of these are going to win the Champions League, so the season will be judged by La Liga. I think on top of that, you have the fact, of course, that they won 3 in a row with Zidane, and that Zidane has put so much, both public and private, priority on the league title, on saying that this is where we're really measured on the week in, the week out. The satisfaction that we get from that is great in the Champions League. Now, look, nothing can eclipse the Champions League in terms of the excitement and so on. And if Madrid were to progress and to win it, then of course we'd all say, well, the Champions League was a big thing. But it is true that internally at the moment there is a focus on the league and a prioritisation of the league that wasn't there before.
Let's just remind you the teams left in the Copa del Rey. Not many would have guessed this. Athletic Bilbao, Granada, Mirandés and Real Sociedad. Sid, a lot of talk at the moment about the future of Kylian Mbappe, heavily linked once again to Real Madrid. Two main questions, I suppose. Do they want him and can they afford him?
Yes, they want him. Yes, they believe they can find a way to afford him. Real Madrid's position on this, in a way, has been clear for a very long time. They want to try and create the conditions in which they can make this happen. That obviously involves the player doing his part, trying to force his way out. It involves trying to drive the price down. And they know, of course, in the shape of Paris Saint-Germain, that they have incredibly difficult adversaries. They have an adversary who can basically say the money doesn't matter. So this is where the doubts lie for Real Madrid, is about getting him out of Paris Saint-Germain. Because, of course, they also believe that it's possible that there is a risk that it's not just about the price, it's about the willingness to sell at any price of PSG. And if that happens, of course, they would then have to wait until the point at which the regulations mean that a price is set on their behalf.
How key in this is all Zidane? So everything goes wrong for Real Madrid and over the next few months Zidane leaves. How much of a player is he in this to get Mbappe to Madrid?
Look, I think he's emotionally a very important player. I think he's important in terms of the way that Mbappe sees it. I think he's important from Madrid's point of view because he's seen as a link to Mbappe. In part, I think in part that's quite lazy from everybody's point of view. Oh, well, he's French, it must be close and so on. But there is an element of truth in that. That said, this goes well beyond that. It's strategic, I think, both from Real Madrid's point of view and while obviously from a Spanish perspective, I know this rather less, but reading between the lines, it appears to be very clear that this is part of Mbappe's long-term strategy, even if Zidane wasn't there.
Do you think what we're seeing at the moment is Mbappe trying to start to create something? Because we've seen the fighting with Tuchel, not once now, but twice on the touchline when he's been substituted.
I don't think he's trying to create something so that you have a pathway to go to Real Madrid. And you create a tense environment. I think he's doing it because he doesn't care for Thomas Tuchel.
Right.
I don't think the two things are connected. Independent of each other, he's saying, I don't respect this manager. I don't respect this guy. And if a byproduct of that is opening a door to Real Madrid, so be it. But I don't see the connection between the two.
You know, getting substituted used to be a humiliating experience. It used to be. Players have gotten a little softer now where it's a chance to clap the crowd. But you know what? The bottom line is the best players, the biggest names, they want to be on the field and they want to score goals.
Yeah, but 5-0 up Montpellier, why are you having a big
doesn't
strop?
matter. Well, look at your face already.
What?
You're saying, it's only 5-0. That's not... Listen, there's a reason Mbappe is where he is in football today at such a young age. He has a huge drive. He's got an ego. He wants to score goals. He don't want to get substituted.
But we don't see Messi and Ronaldo having that at that age, will they? We don't see that sort of attitude.
What do you mean that sort of attitude?
That arguing clearly on the touchline. With
I don't remember
coach.
that. Sorry, I don't remember them getting substituted.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good point.
Right.
Hey, good job.
Well done, Stevie. Well done, Stevie. Who is humiliated now? Thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow. Till then, goodbye. Those Copa del Rey results dominate extra time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, all about Barcelona and Real Madrid. So, Sid, not one of your big, long answers for all of them. Hi, guys. Who do you think played worse than the other, Real Madrid or Barcelona? What do you think, Stevie?
Oh, Real Madrid.
Played worse?
Yeah, but listen, Barcelona should have won this game. So, and the fact that Real Madrid got even close, so it's not even close.
Not even close?
Not even close.
Sid, is it too early to judge Setien at Barcelona, or is the result today enough to judge where the team is going?
Well, funnily enough, Setien after the game, and he would probably agree with Steve, said that he was pleased with the performance. He said it is not just about the results, it's about creating a pathway, and I believe we're on the right pathway. So if you're going to judge Setien, according to Setien, you can judge things pretty positively. My personal opinion is yes, it is too early, because if this is a pathway, it's one that's not entirely clear yet. But I think what we can probably do with this, more than anything else, is say that this was far more complex than just saying that the bad guys were Luis Suarez and Ernesto Valverde and it was all their fault. It was not all their fault.
Let me tell you something about these pathways. It's going to get a little bit more complicated for Quique Setien this weekend, where he has to go back and coach in Real Betis de Sevilla, in a match in which we're talking about, okay, all right, this is a team that you were coaching. This is how you came to prominence. And so two worlds coming together for Quique Setien, and the world that he's currently a part of is on fire. And how do you resolve it? I don't think he has the answers.
Will Valverde be enjoying this, Stevie?
No.
No?
I don't think so. No, the guy's clearly... Well, he partly got the job because of the connection he has with the club. And when you've got such a connection, you don't enjoy sitting back watching your team and your club.
Even though it's a club that just sacked you.
Yeah, you
So
don't...
when the Revs, when you and the Revs parted company, you weren't cheering on the other side for a little bit. Just...
No, because the Revs didn't get rid of me because I was doing a great job.
Right.
That's how, if you can't look at it that way, because let's be honest, that's in my opinion how Valverde got the sack because he wasn't doing a good job. So you can't go around wishing harm on anybody.
When teams
just because
traded
you don't do
Ali,
a good job.
did you wish them ill?
I wish that the next time I played him, I would score and I would celebrate. I didn't do the things that players do whenever they change teams and they don't celebrate.
Yeah.
No. If I scored against a team that traded me,
How finished is Gerard Piqué, Sid?
Wow. I mean, I'm very reluctant to say that he's finished, and I've also been a big defender of Piqué over the last 7 or 8 years when I think he's been overlooked far too often as one of the best defenders in the world. I think he hasn't been talked about enough because all the focus is on Sergio Ramos because of his kind of cartoonish sort of heroics. But that image tonight of Iñaki Williams running up the wing and Piqué hanging onto him and be dragged behind him like an action hero hanging onto the bumper of a car, although, of course, significantly less heroic. I must admit, I looked at that and thought, Jerry, mate, it's time to go.
You know, it's the last time we saw one of those like that? Matt Bartra still trying to catch Gareth Bale.
Yeah, Copa del Rey fine.
Yeah.
Do you know the worst thing about PK's situation for him and everybody around him is that when players used to play against him, it was the whole. He would dominate them as much with his brain as he would because he was never Usain Bolt.
Yep.
But he was just smart and clever. But there comes a time when you're a player that physically you can't do it, regardless of how smart you are. You physically cannot match up with certain people. And that's kind of what happened tonight.
Let's face it, though, after the Super Bowl, it's difficult to feel sorry for Gerard Piqué in any sort of way. Sid, do you think
You okay?
I got my mind drifted.
What? Yes, it did.
Do you think Ter Stegen's best days are behind him?
Oh.
Sid?
What?
No, I think Ter Stegen's worst defence is in front of him.
Yeah.
I think that's the more important element here. I think he's far too young to say his best days are behind him. I do wonder, though, with him. During the show, I said that I thought Messi was 75% certain to stay. I think Ter Stegen's intentions in the mid to long term do not reside at Barcelona.
Why?
Because I think he doesn't necessarily have that connection to the club, because I think he's seen some of the institutional stuff that he probably can't quite believe, because I think he's possibly not as close to some of the dressing room heavyweights as you might want him to be, and I guess that there may be a connection with trying to decide to try it out somewhere else. That said, one thing we have all said about him, and this is where I completely contradict myself, is that he's settled really well in Barcelona as a city.
Okay. All right, Sid.
Just hates everyone he plays with.
So, can you say that again?
Who's more likely to leave in the summer, Sid? Simeone or Messi?
Ooh.
Oh, wow, that's a great question. What did I say? I said Messi was 75% to stay.
Yep.
Simeone... I think Simeone's more likely to leave of the two of them.
With most... Oh, goodness, what's wrong with reading today?
Hey, that's some difficulties.
9 days in a row, come on, you know.
Oh, okay, there it is.
With both Madrid teams out and Barcelona, who's the favourite now for the Copa del Rey, Sid?
Mirandes.
Mirandes.
Well, I mean, this is it. You've got Mirandes from the second division. You've got Granada, who are a recently promoted team from the second division now in the first. And you've got the two Basque clubs. Now, obviously, on the face of it, you say the two Basque clubs. Let's see what the draw brings. Because it may well be that it puts them together and one of them has to go out. I think on the face of it, you've got to say one of those two. But you know what? Wouldn't it be absolutely wonderful if Mirandes actually won this thing?
Remember, it's over two legs, the semi-finals. Stevie! Go back into your history a little bit.
All right.
What was the most challenging team that you ever played against?
I got to say, and I don't want you to accuse me of throwing Liverpool into this, but I'm going to.
Oh, you're not going to say Sheffield Wednesday against Liverpool?
No. No, I was going to say Manchester United at Old Trafford. And I was playing for Sheffield Wednesday at the time.
Right.
And I can honestly tell you, on a couple of occasions, when the ball went out of play, or there was a break in play, I was counting to see how many men they had. Because I would have sworn they had more players.
Who was on
than
that
us.
United team?
Oh, I mean, it was Schmeichel, Bruce, Scholes, Beckham, Cole, Cantona.
Oh.
I mean, it was a fantastic team. And so after the game, I was talking to Steve Bruce and the players' bar, and I said, you know what? I said the same thing. I said, are you sure you're the same amount of players as us? He goes, well, you know what? I said, now you know how it felt when we used to go and play here.
Oh, what a moment. See, it's a full
See?
circle. Yeah, see.
See?
You know.
Beautiful.
What a good. No, it just shows you what a good guy Bruce is.
Oh,
But,
well, I'll tell you what.
but I'll tell you what, seriously, they must have more.
From my perspective, I know the question is not for me. I merely just wanted to say.
Was it the Liverpool team of the 80s?
No, it was not. But the Brazil team in World Cup qualifiers, I believe it was for the 2010 World Cup, I want to say. And we had to play away from home. And on the field at the same time, it was Rivaldo, original Ronaldo, up-and-coming Robinho, Ronaldinho, Adriano.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Cafu on one side, Roberto Carlos on the other side. I'm just like, well, we got me. It wasn't enough.
Who would win between the Liverpool team of the 80s and that Brazil side?
Well, that Brazil side was really, really good.
Final question. What is the best hot dog topping? Mustard, ketchup, relish, mayo? Sid, what are you going for?
Well, you can't go for one because it's mustard and ketchup.
I hate mustard.
If you put in mayo on there, you're all wrong.
I really don't like mustard.
Mayo cannot go on the hot dog.
No. What are you having on it?
I'll have relish.
Relish?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing? You like it plain?
No, I just don't like hot dogs.
Oh,
No, not enough.
You like it topped with shepherd's pie, don't you, Steve?
I love
Just a little sprinkling of peas and
the
turn it on the top.
I love a hot dog, but shepherd's pie on top. No,
You know what?
no sausage or bun.
I'll have a little mustard, a little ketchup. Don't bother with the hot dog.
So what's your go-to if you go to a stadium to watch a game? A burger?
I'll go for a burger.
Burger over hot dog, and then what will you have on the burger? Ketchup, relish,
Ketchup.
Mustard.
No.
No,
No.
just ketchup.
Ketchup.
simple.
You know,
Keep it simple.
Straightforward.
Simple
keep
man.
it very simple.
Yeah.
Very
One and two
simple.
touches.
Don't complicate
One and two
things.
touches.
That's it. I'm done for the week.